Hi, it's Scott here from MoneyNerd, and I help people beat debt collectors and become debt-free. In this quick video, I'm going to show you how to deal with NCO Europe debt collectors. You've probably received a letter from NCO or even had them knocking at your door. When I had debt collectors chasing me back in 2010, it caused me a lot of stress and anxiety. But since then, I've worked in the credit card industry for over 10 years, and I'm happy to say I've been able to use my insider knowledge to help thousands of people out of debt. So today I'd like to share that knowledge by answering 5 frequently asked questions, such as how to reduce your repayment amounts, how to stop NCO Europe from contacting you, what happens if you ignore them, and what they're not allowed to do when they're collecting your debt. At the end of this video, I have a bonus tip on how to write off some of your debt, so stick around to the end. Okay, so question number 1, are NCO Europe legitimate? Well, if you've received a letter in the post, this is probably your first question. If you don't recognize the company name, it might be that they've purchased your debt or they're a debt collector collecting on behalf of another company. I can confirm that NCO Europe is a UK registered company, and whilst there are a bunch of scams out there when it comes to debt, I'm afraid this is unlikely to be a scam. However, you should never pay unless you're certain that the debt is yours. You're well within your right to ask NCO Europe to provide proof that the debt is yours, and I have a free letter template on my website, which I'll link to in the description below. Okay, question number 2. What happens if you ignore NCO Europe? Well, if you ignore debt collectors, your problem could escalate and become very serious. NCO Europe do have the right to take court action against you. If you were to ignore court action or the court action letters, you could end up with a county court judgment or a CCJ. This could have a major impact on your credit score and also your chances of borrowing money in the future. If you do get a CCJ and you still don't pay, this could ultimately result in bailiffs coming to your home to take your valuable items or even your car. So please don't ignore them, and we'll get to what you should do later in this video. Question number 3. What NCO Europe are not allowed to do? Well, despite being legally appointed to collect your debt or outright owning your debt, there's several things that NCO Europe cannot do when it comes to collecting your debts. Knowing that NCO Europe must uphold standards set out by the regulatory guidelines will make you feel a lot more comfortable and confident when dealing with them. So here's the things they're legally not allowed to do. They're not allowed to visit your place of work without you giving them specific permission to do so. Before this rule was in place, some debt collectors would show up while you're working and try and make things awkward for you as a way of pressuring you into paying. And on a similar note, they're not allowed to speak to neighbors, friends, or family about your debt. Again, this is to stop them from trying to embarrass you or shame you into paying your debt. NCO Europe can't contact you or visit your home at unreasonable times of the day. For phone calls, most people would agree that this is before 8 a.m. and after 9 p.m. Those would be too early or too late. But your circumstances might be different. For example, if you work a night shift. If you can't take calls during certain times, then tell them, and they should keep a record of this and avoid calling you at these certain times. If they do call you at these certain times, you're well within your rights to make a complaint. They're not allowed to act in a threatening or intimidating way. Also, they should never pressure you into paying larger installments than you can afford or hitting deadlines that are impossible. These regulations also say they're not allowed to pressure you into selling your house or to take out more credit to pay your existing debts. Debt collectors can't pretend to be bailiffs or enforcement agents. Unlike bailiffs or enforcement agents, debt collectors can't force their way into your house or refuse to leave if you ask them to. And they're certainly not allowed to take your belongings or clamp your car. Question number 4 is, how long can you be chased for debt? Well, under the Limitations Act of 1980, a creditor has up to 6 years to chase most unsecured unpaid debts, or 12 years for some mortgage debts. This limitation period starts from the time of your last payment or when you last acknowledged the debt. If a CCJ has been registered against you before the limitation period has passed, then it can be enforced at any point, as there's no limitation period for a CCJ. Also, the limitation period doesn't apply to debts owed to the government, such as income tax, benefit overpayments, and council tax, which means these types of debts can be collected even after 6 years have passed. Okay, last question, then I have a bonus tip on how you can write off some of your debt. Question number 5 is, how can I pay less and come to an agreement with NCO Europe? Well, there's a number of ways you might be able to reduce the amount you pay. If you're struggling to make repayments or the repayment amount, then there's several options you could explore. If NCO Europe are adding interest and charges to your debts, then you could ask them to freeze them to help you get back on track quicker or clear your debts quicker. Debt collectors are more likely to stop interest and reduce charges if you're able to prove that you're in financial difficulties. I'd suggest you put together a budget showing your income and essential living costs so you can clearly demonstrate your financial difficulties. You can also use that budget to negotiate reduced payments. Again, for this, you'll need to show why you can't afford high repayments, so use that budget to write down your income and your essential living costs so you can demonstrate what you can afford. Some debt collectors will only agree to reduce payments for a set period of time, and at the end of this period, they'll want an update on your situation. Others will agree to a much longer repayment period, and all of this will totally depend on the nature of the debt and your individual circumstances. If you have the cash, you could make a full and final settlement offer. This is where you ask if they'll let you pay a lump sum instead of the full balance. In return for that lump sum, some debt collectors will agree to write off the remainder of the debt. And as promised, here's my bonus tip on how you might be able to write off some of your debt. And it's not just with NCO Europe, by the way. If you have debts with other people, there's lots of ways you can significantly reduce your repayments or even write off some of your debts. During my career in the credit card industry, I gained lots of insider knowledge, and as a result, I discovered there are 7 relatively unheard of debt solutions that are available in the UK. The industry doesn't really advertise these, as most of them are either free or low cost, so there's not much money to be made out of them. Now, unfortunately for you, these debt solutions are not available to everybody. You do need to be in specific circumstances, but there's probably at least one of these solutions that you do qualify for. You could either be paying less than you do already, or maybe even write off some of your debt. To make it simple for you, I've created a free eligibility checker, which I've linked to in the description below. It's just 5 simple questions and takes less than 30 seconds to find out if you can reduce your repayments or even write off some of your debt. So click the link in the description below and go and do that now.